Hi everyone, I'm Shelly from There's No Place Like Home at redheadmom8.wordpress.com. Today I wanted to share with you some books from my personal collection that are going to help take you down the rabbit hole. So if you want to be red-pilled, here are the books that you want to read. Okay, first let me say that since these are books that are just from my own bookshelves, books that I own, there are clearly going to be a lot more books out there that you are going to want to read if you want to actually learn the truth about everything going on around us. But I do have enough here to at least suggest to you and to talk about with you today to get you started on the journey of finding out that we haven't been told the truth about so many things. So the books that I wanted to share with you today, I've actually separated into 4 separate categories. Don't worry, I don't have like 20 books in each one. This isn't going to be a 2-hour video. There's just a couple books in each category, but I thought that it was important to separate them simply because a lot of times when people are hearing the term red-pilled, they're thinking of being red-pilled government-wise. That is usually where people start. They start to realize that the whole left-right paradigm is actually a tactic being used to pit us against one another so that we become easier to control. And so for a lot of people, that is where the red pill starts. For me, that's not where I was red-pilled. I was actually red-pilled because of homeschooling, because of reading up on the history of education. So yeah, that's going to be one of the categories that I share books with you from today. So now the 3 categories that I do have though, 4, are government, education, health, and religion. So first of all, let's just start in the government category. And first of all, I want to say that there's definitely going to be some overlap between all of these because a lot of these books are going to include aspects or ideas that you read about in other books. But I have them categorized according to like what they are basically about. So in my government category, the first book that I recommend the most to you is Behold a Pale Horse. This is by William Cooper. He actually, a lot of people say that he is the one who started the truther movement, the red pill movement. I'm just going to read to you a little bit about who he is. Bill Cooper, former United States Naval Intelligence Briefing Team member, reveals information hidden from the public. This information was kept in top secret government files since the 1940s. And so he actually discloses a lot of things in this book that he wasn't supposed to, and he ended up being assassinated for it. So here's one, for example, the Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1988. I'm just going to give you some ideas of the things. Here, actually, you know what? Let's just look at the table of contents here. And I'm not going to go through all of them because there's a lot here, but silent weapons for quiet wars, secret societies, and the New World Order. Oath of initiation of an unidentified secret order, the secret treaty of Verona, goodbye USA, hello New World Order, HR 4079 and FEMA, Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1988, Are the Sheep Ready to Shear, Anatomy of an Alliance, Lessons from Lithuania, Coup de Grazie, I don't know if I said that right, The Secret Government, Treason in High Places, A Proposed Constitutional Model for the New States of America, The Story of Jonathan May, and Documentation, U.S. Army Intelligence Connection with the Satanic Church. And you know, I have to say that as I was reading this book, I haven't finished it yet because I'm always reading so many books at one time. But at one point, I just started making notes in the margins of this book because there are so many things that I was shocked to read because this book was written in the 1990s and the things that he was saying were going to start happening are happening. He knew what he was talking about. This wasn't some conspiracy theorist who was crazy and, just came up with these insane ideas. This was written in the 90s, and the stuff that he was writing about is happening. So here's one thing that I have underlined here. It says, it is paradoxical that the government body most representative of the American citizen is the one that has been the most easily subverted. Through PACs, payoffs, pork barrel politics, professional politicians, congressmen who are members of secret societies, and through greed and fear, our representatives and senators quit representing us long ago. So that's just one area of this. I could go on and on about this. I actually talked about this a little bit on Instagram. I was showing some images a few months back when I was reading it. And here's another note that I made. It said that I actually wrote this from what I was reading. Rockefeller was behind everything. The Bilderberg Group is in charge. So, behold the pale horse. And the second one that I have in this government category is the one that I'm actually currently reading right now. And let me just tell you that the reason that for now that I stopped reading Behold the Pale Horse is because I found it to be so troubling. I actually started getting anxiety from reading the stuff that was going on here when I realized how true it is. So I had to take a break from it. Didn't really move on to much lighter reading because now I'm reading this one, Apollyon Rising 2012, The Lost Symbol Found and the Final Mystery of the Great Seal Revealed. And even though it says Apollyon Rising 2012, it's not just about 2012. This is where I've been reading about the actual Masonic history of our country. And it's very troubling for me because, you know, I very often refer back to our founding fathers, but then to find out that they might not all have been the people that I thought them to be, it's unsettling. Now, first of all, I want to say that I don't ever expect anyone to read any of these books or any other books and then think right away that 100% that has to be the truth. The idea of going down a rabbit hole is to keep doing your research. You know, I might find contrary evidence to this at some point. So it's just a matter of educating yourself and making the best decisions that you can, because as I mentioned before, we are living in a time that you honestly don't know what is the truth anymore. So now that's all that I had in the government section. The next section that I'm going to share with you are the category of education books that are going to red pill you if you have not read them. So first of all, this is my favorite. You know, you probably know what it is already. The Underground History of American Education. This book will open your eyes like no other to the truth about the compulsory school system. And, you know, this is the book that you can tell if people did or did not read it, because the people who have not read this book, even homeschoolers, will still tend to think that there are some saving graces in the public school system or that there are good schools. When in fact, if you read this book, you will realize that that's not the case. And the entire institution was designed to fail our country. The compulsory school system, the American education system, was never about academics or making kids smarter or helping them. It was about control. So yeah, you could very well put this into the government section as well. Now the next one is by the same author, John Taylor Gatto, Dumbing Us Down, the Hidden Curriculum of Compulsory Schooling. And if you've seen my videos on the Hidden Curriculum series, I got the idea from this book right here. And as you can see, it's not thick. So I don't want to say it's a light read because it's a lot to take in, but it won't take you long if you sit down and go to get through it. But if you don't want to start with something as big or as thick as the American Education book, which actually this one is only volume 1. The first time that I read it, I read the entire thing at once, and it was like the size of a phone book, I swear. But this one is also, it gives a great look at what school is all about. This is the book right here that actually red-pilled me. This was the original book that I read, the first book that I read, that I realized, oh my gosh, school is nothing about what I ever thought it was. So another one that I have, this one actually lost the jacket, and I apologize for that, is Weapons of Mass Instruction, also by John Taylor Gatto. And so, as most of you probably know, he is like one of my favorite authors. And this is another book that is certainly worth reading. It's another inside look into the compulsory school system. Now, the author of the last 3 books that I was just telling you about, He was a school teacher. He was the New York City and New York State Teacher of the Year multiple times. So this isn't someone who's on the outside looking in. He was in the system. And he eventually said that he quit teaching because he was no longer willing to hurt children. And so if you even notice in the very first chapter of this book, it's called Everything You Know About Schools is Wrong. And there's a quote that says, in 1909, a factory inspector did an informal survey of 500 working children in 20 factories. She found that 412 of them, so 412 out of the 500, would rather work in the terrible conditions of the factories than return to school. And that was in McClure's magazine, April of 1913. So that is certainly a great way to start this book about what the school system is about, weapons of mass instruction. Now another one, this one could actually, oops, I'm dropping books on the floor. This one could also actually go into the religion section as well, but I put it in the education section just because this one is kind of balanced between the two. And it's Education, Does God Have an Opinion? And obviously this book is geared for the Christian parent. But you know, a lot of times you will hear people say that that education was not written about in the Bible. But the fact is that, yeah, of course, school wasn't mentioned in the Bible because there was no such thing as school during those times. But there are so many passages, so many verses, so many commands that God made to us that will tell you otherwise, that, yeah, he did have something to say in this area. So the last one in the education section that I wanted to share with you, I have to admit, I have not read this book yet. This is the well, not the last. Actually, no, yeah, it's the last book on education that I got. So I just got it a couple weeks ago, and I'm still reading other books, so I haven't started it yet. But I did page through it. And did you ever page through a book and certain things catch your eye and you just think, oh my gosh, I can't wait to start reading this book? That's this one here. It's called What's Happening in Our Schools. None Dare Call It Education. And it's the documented account of how education reforms are undermining academics and traditional values. And this is written by John A. Stormer. And I just wanted to, at the beginning of all the chapters, he shares a quote. And the quote will give you an idea of what each chapter was about. So I just put some notes here just so I could read some of them to you. So the introduction is called What's Happening to Our Schools and to Our Children. And this quote said, the predominant value system of an entire culture can be overturned in one generation, or certainly in two, by those with unlimited access to children. And that was by Dr. James Dobson who said that. Now another quote here is, for over 100 years, Americans have been running a gigantic experiment in government schools, trying to find out what a society looks like without God. Now we know. And that's by Douglas Wilson. The next quote is by Dr. Benjamin Bloom, grandfather of OBE. I'm not sure what OBE says. I'm just reading you what it says. But I'm assuming Dr. Benjamin Bloom, he would be the author of Bloom's Taxonomy, that everyone who wants to go to college to become a teacher, I've heard, at least, I did not go to college to become a teacher myself, but what I've heard is that Bloom's Taxonomy is huge. So what he has to say is, the purpose of education is to change the thoughts, feelings, and actions of students. We see that happening now, don't we? And the last one that I actually marked was, this one was a quote by the NEA, the National Education Association Executive Secretary Sam Lambert, and this is in 1967, he said, the NEA will become a political power second to no other special interest group. Another book you want to pick up. That's all that I have in the education category. So the next one that I'm moving on to is health. Now, in the health category, I only have one book because I haven't really accumulated a lot of things on this subject. But what I can tell you is the reason that I am including a book on health in this book of red pill books is because we have been lied to about health. in so many different areas. And, for years, I've been watching them on the news complain about big pharma, but their actions don't match what their words say, because the same groups, for example, the media, who used to criticize big pharma all the time, they're the ones who are helping to push the things that big pharma is trying to do to us. And so what someone recommended to me and that I got was How to Raise a Healthy Child in Spite of Your Doctor. And it says one of America's leading pediatricians puts parents back in control of their children's health, Robert Mendelsohn. And I suggest that you get this off of Amazon before they take it away. Now, I just wanted to read you some of the chapter headings so that you would get an idea of what you would get out of this book. Most things get better by morning. That's talking about you don't have to call the doctor over every little thing like we're always led to believe. Parents and grandparents are wiser than doctors. How doctors can make healthy kids sick. Protecting your children before they are born. Proper nutrition for health and growth. What you should expect of your child, fever, your body's defense against disease. And it just goes on over, things like headache, fever, but the mythical menace of strep throat. Earaches, painful, yes, dangerous, rarely. And it talks about asthma and allergies, the child who never sits still. It talks about the overdiagnosis of hyperactivity and the dangers of drug treatment for that. Immunization against disease, a medical time bomb. So these are just some of the things that he writes about in this. And I'm going to say it again. Pediatrician wrote this book. You want to get this and you want to read this because it is going to wake you up to so many things that are not true that we've been led to believe. So now the last category that I have in this red pill, in my red pill book list, my red pill book recommendations, you might think, okay, religion, what does that have to do with being red pilled? Well, the thing is, I'm referring to the Christian religion, okay? Because obviously I'm a Christian and that's what I know. And that is what I believe to be true. I have to add that as well. Anyway, I think that unfortunately a lot of Christianity, a lot of the beliefs have gone from believing what the Bible says to believing what Christian tradition tells us. And the problem is that a lot of people are afraid to question like their pastors and their church because they almost look at it like they're questioning God. But you are not questioning God when you question the things that your pastors say that might not fit properly with what the Bible says. It's okay to question your pastor. It's okay to question your church because church tradition is not truth. The Bible is truth. And I think it's really, really important that people understand that. So one book that really helped me with that is called Reversing Herman by Dr. Michael S. Heiser. It's actually called Reversing Herman, Enoch, the Watchers, and the Forgotten Mission of Jesus Christ. Now, Dr. Michael S. Heiser, he is the resident scholar for Logos Bible Software. He's an evangelical Christian, and he is a Hebrew scholar. He specializes in reading the Bible from its original Hebrew, the Old Testament, and then the Greek in the New Testament, but he reads it from the worldview of the people who wrote it. And the problem is that a lot of times when we are hearing things in church, not everything, but there are just certain areas that we are hearing in church that are not actually what the people thought who were writing it. They didn't see things the way that we interpret it. We interpret things through Christian tradition, but that's not how it was intended by the people who wrote it. So he talks about that in Reversing Herman and in The Unseen Realm. Now the reason, same author, Dr. Michael Heiser. And the reason that I am bringing these two books up is because once you realize the things that, now you might already be awake to these things that he talks about in this book. But once you realize the mistruths that, we've been led to believe, and I'm not saying that like our pastors are doing this on purpose. This is what they were taught to, and this has been going on for hundreds of years. But you cannot get a full grasp on the actual prophetic place that we are in the world today, if you do not understand certain aspects of the Bible, if you are looking at certain areas of the Bible from a Christian tradition, you are going to miss so much. It is so important that you understand it through the eyes of the people who wrote it. It is going to help you to understand how dire of a situation the world is in today, and that, you know, it can only be saved by one person, and that is the person of Jesus Christ, who is God. And the last book in the religion section is The Second Coming of the New Age, The Hidden Dangers of Alternative Spirituality in Contemporary America and Its Churches. I have talked about this in one of my videos when I mentioned meditation and mindfulness, and I mentioned yoga at some point. And, you know, there are a lot of Christians who practice yoga, and there are a lot of churches even that host yoga classes. But this is somebody who is actually coming from the New Age movement. He became a Christian, and he's talking about some of the things that happened to him that are extremely troubling, and he is linking how all of these things are working together with witchcraft, divination, enlightenment, tarot. All of these things are connected in those things. So he's talking about the New Age movement and how it's creeping in to the into the Christian church. And again, it's something that you need to be awakened to, because if you are not careful, you could be also one of the people who is falling for these things as well. Anyway, so I hope that these books have given you some idea of things that you can read. And, you know, now the last books that I'm going to talk about, I don't have on my shelves. I don't own them. I always just get them from the library. And they're actually fiction books. But I've mentioned them enough that you probably are waiting for me to talk about them. I'm just going to recommend that you read, if you have not already, 1984, Brave New World, and Fahrenheit 451. Read those three fiction books, especially 1984 if you've never read it before. And if you read it now, you're going to be shocked at the similarity between this book and the world today. Anyway, that's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one over on Instagram because YouTube disabled my comments. And if you like my work and would like to check out my Patreon page, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well. And I hope you have a great day.